G'day everyone, a couple of days ago I posted a video asking for some questions and somehow I actually got some. So, here are some answers for you all. Before I begin though, a bunch of you asked the same question, so if I miss your question it's probably because I've answered it somewhere already. So, sorry about that. So, without further ado. First question, Zekros77 writes, congrats on hitting 600. It's great to know more people will get the chance to hear your awesome music. Who is your favourite pony? I know it's an evil question. Well, thank you, Zekros77. I know it's an evil answer, but I don't really have a favourite pony. But if you forced me to answer, I'd probably have to say Rainbow Dash just because she's got the best soundtrack. And, well, I'm a musician and I care about soundtracks. There you go. Mr. Sneaky Sly asks, how long does it take to produce a 7 to 10 minute long song? It depends a lot on the song, but it generally takes me a few weeks for a song of that length. Firstly, I'll usually take a couple of weeks just to write and arrange and figure out what I'm doing. And then what takes me the longest amount of time is actually rhythm guitar parts, because I'm actually not a very good guitarist. And I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I double track on my rhythm parts, which makes them take twice as long. And yeah, for a Canterlot wedding tribute, that was about 7 minutes I think, and that took me about a month. So that's sort of the length of time that it takes me to produce these. Matthew Fred Rocks asks, when did you first watch MLP FIM? What was your initial opinion on the show and what do you think of it today? And what software programs do you use when creating music? When I first started watching Friendship is Magic, I thought the show had a tremendous amount of energy to it. I mean, sometimes cartoons can come off as being sort of flat and lifeless and a bit flat. Even if they've got good writing, even if they've got good voice acting, even sometimes if the animation is good, although normally it happens because the animation isn't very good. But yeah, somewhere between the writing and the animation and the acting, it all just sort of came together for Friendship is Magic, and it was just, it jumps out the screen at you, you know, it's sort of, yeah, an energy to it, which is incredible. With the more recent episodes, you can definitely tell the creators are more aware of the fandom. There's all these sly winks to the bronies everywhere, and every few minutes there's some image or some line that almost feels like it's designed to be a meme. Yeah. And the other thing I noticed as a musician is that the voices for Rainbow Dash and Applejack, they've both gotten lower. Yeah. As for the software programs I use, for my digital audio workstation, or DAW for those playing along at home, I use Pro Tools 9. I also have the Native Instruments Complete 8 bundle, and I use a couple of things from that. Mostly I use the various libraries from Contact, and I also use Guitar Rig, so for basically all of my guitar and bass sounds. I also have East West Quantum Leap Symphonic Orchestra and Symphonic Choirs, although I only just got Symphonic Choirs, so I haven't had a lot of time to play around with it, but both of those are pretty good as well. So 08 Putty 08. I probably just mispronounced your name, I'm sorry. Well, they ask, is there any chance you will do MLP songs with only symphonic instruments? Do you ever listen to Nobuo Uematsu or Yoko Shimomura's music? Well, to the first question, probably not. One thing I've noticed in the pony fandom is that all of the artists who aren't making dubstep seem to be doing orchestral stuff, and a lot of them are better at it than I am. So I think I'll leave it to those people. But that said, I am involved in creating music for a couple of different fan projects, and most of that is just symphonic stuff. So if you listen to some of those, you might hear some of my symphonic music, but just for my own self, I don't think I'll be doing just symphonic stuff. Yeah. And I've never heard of either of those two composers, but Google told me that they're both video game composers for, I think it's Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. yeah, and I've never played those two series of games, so that would be why I've never heard of those people, but I'm sure they're great composers. The Hanson Man 68 asks, you said that your original plan was to do metal tributes to a lot of different things, but considering that your MLP vids are a lot more popular than non-MLP, and there are only 2 non-MLP and lots of MLP, will we still see non-MLP stuff or mainly MLP related vids? At the moment what I'm working on is pretty much exclusively pony related, partly because they seem to be more popular. But also, that's what seems to be most of my ideas these days. When I started up the Symphonic Metal Tributes, I originally had a whole list of things I wanted to cover, but it turns out that the Symphonic Metal thing just doesn't work very well a lot of the time. For instance, I was planning to do a James Bond tribute and try and release it around the same time as Skyfall. So, yeah, and that was going to cover as many Bond themes as I could cram in. But when I sat down and listened to them all, like, man, there was a few that I knew of that I thought would work very well. And then there were a whole bunch of themes that were just too slow, or they just weren't in the right sort of feel to translate very well to symphonic metal, and I just couldn't hear how the whole thing would work. And it's been like that with a few different ideas I've had. The Zelda tribute I was planning on doing sort of falls in a similar category. Yeah, and I don't really like going through with an idea until I have an idea of how it'll all sound, until I have an idea of what it'll sound like the whole way through. Because, yeah, these tributes take a long time to record. Just so much stuff to do for them. So, yeah. So, yeah, I guess most of what you'll be seeing, at least in the near future, is MLP stuff from me. So, my apologies to people who subscribe to me for my non-MLP stuff. Yeah. Greenie Brony asks, why do you think you are not as popular as some other Brony artists, like, for example, Bonafide? Well, I'm not really sure. I guess symphonic metal is sort of a niche genre. People look at it and go, what? I'm not going to listen to that. Well, I don't know. Yeah. Not a Fan Man 88 asks a bunch of questions. Firstly, do you lift? No, I'm actually allergic to exercise. I break out in sweats and my heartbeat sort of increases and I find it a bit hard to breathe or something. Question 2. Has anyone ever been as far as to want to do more look like... What is this? I don't even... Question 3. How long have you guitared, and then when did you add the symphonic element to it? Well, I guess I've been playing guitar for about 1.5 years, maybe a little bit longer. Although, I played bass for a few years before that, and I've been taking piano lessons. Well, I started piano lessons when I was 7 years old, and did them all the way through high school. So, yeah, I guess I had a bit of an advantage when I started playing guitar. So, yeah. And the symphonic stuff came before I started playing guitar. Like a few years ago was when I really started. I was playing keyboards for a progressive metal / metalcore, I guess, sort of band. I guess that's what we were. And yeah, we did a fair bit of epic sort of majestic stuff, and I was responsible for doing all the symphonic sort of orchestration stuff for them. And that's when I sort of started getting into the symphonic metal stuff. And question 4, which MLP sites do you frequent? Well, I'm regularly on Equestria Daily, and I also read way too much on filmfiction.net. Sideswipe Prime 606 asks, what inspired you to start making symphonic metal covers of the songs from My Little Pony? I've been a big fan of symphonic metal for a while now, and after having watched the show for a bit, the whole thing just sort of came to me. Actually, I think it was the ending section, was the closing theme going into that big epic ending bit that I do at the end of the MLP tribute. That whole section just sort of appeared in my head one day, and I had to get it out, and then I had to write this. And then yeah, it wasn't enough just by itself. I had to write a whole tribute around it, and then I recorded the whole thing, which took too long, and yeah, here we are. October 666W has a bunch of questions. Firstly, who are your greatest musical influences? Well, I'm influenced by lots and lots of different musicians and bands. I'm a big fan of Dream Theater, Symphony X, Camelot, Opeth, a whole bunch of progressive bands like that. And lately I've been listening to Protest the Hero and Periphery, although I don't think they've sort of snuck into my music much yet. Maybe they will at some point. And yeah, there's probably a whole bunch of other musicians that I'm forgetting about. Also a whole bunch of pony musicians that I listen to, although I don't really take a whole lot of influence from them. But yeah, like Mando Pony and Bonafide. Also Symphonic. I did a cover of one of his songs. He needs to release more songs. He's been like missing for like 6 months. So if you're listening, Ponyphonic, release more songs. Which instrument can you actually play? Well, I play basically any instrument I can get my hands on, but as far as instruments I can actually regularly play, probably piano, guitar, bass, melodica, and saxophone, although I don't actually play sax anymore. So I guess that's not actually on the list. But also recorder. I've been playing recorder recently. Here we go, right here. How did you start your musical project here on YouTube? I'm not sure I understand your question properly. Well, I just recorded some songs and then put them on YouTube, and then a whole bunch of people watched them or listened to them. I'm not sure what the correct verb is for songs. But yeah, that's sort of what happened. Does that answer your question? I hope it does. And a couple of you asked, how did you get into My Little Pony? And why did you think you grew to like it? Well, I first came across MLP through the internet, as I'm sure a lot of the fans did. And I read a whole bunch of webcomics, and I noticed a few different artists making all these references to ponies and drawing fan art of their cast as ponies and doing all sorts of other stuff to do with MLP. So I'm seeing all these references, and I was started asking, like, what is all this pony stuff about? So I got a hold of the episodes from the show and started watching and sort of got hooked. I guess I grew to like it because the show is sort of different to everything else on TV and the internet. Yeah, and the animation is just so good. Eccentric Brony asks, what equipment do you use to make your music? Well, to start with, behind me is the computer where I do basically all of my recording on. I think I already answered a question about software, but I use Pro Tools 9 and a whole bunch of different plugins. I have a bunch of different mics, so here is the one I usually use. It's a Rode NT1A large diaphragm condenser mic, and that is a very nice microphone. I use that for all sorts of different things like vocals and recorder, and I've used it for acoustic guitar before as well. And, yeah. What else I have on my right here? Let's see if I can move this. There we go. My controller keyboard, which is a Roland RS9 with these semi-weighted keys, I guess you'd call them. I used to use this keyboard for live shows, and it's excellent because it's a full-size keyboard, but it's got these very light keys, and the whole thing is extremely light. And you can still sort of dig in and get big giant piano sounds from it, but you can also play extremely fast, which I find really hard to do on a proper weighted keyboard. So there you go. So I use that for recording in all of my orchestral and drum parts. And over on my left here, if I pan the camera around, there you go. There's my guitar rack. My guitar, which I use, yeah, the guitar I use for most of my recording is this Schecter Omen 6. There it is, it says Omen 6, yeah, yeah. And I recently put some new pickups in here. They're a pair of Damasio's. Yeah, and this is tuned in drop B, which is kind of low, but yeah, I think it's a pretty cool tuning, so yeah. Oh, that's out of tune. I have a couple of basses over here too, so this is the bass I normally use. It's a Ryden Special 5. Has 5 strings, makes low notes. Basses aren't very exciting. Sorry to all the bassists out there. Yeah, and that's basically all the gear I'm using at the moment. The Mark K TV asks, is there any chance of a collab with another Brony artist in the future? Brony fart. Well, there's no plans at the moment, but I'd love to do a collab in the future. If there's any artists out there who have something they want me to help to, I don't know, throw a guitar solo on, or do some orchestration, or lay down some vocal tracks or something, send me a message, I'll see what I can do. Fear the MQ9 Reaper asks, will you ever release tabs for your songs? Well, generally when I'm writing or arranging songs, I will write out a tab, just so I can figure out which parts of the song go where, and roughly what the guitar parts are. But they're usually pretty sketchy, and they probably won't make a whole lot of sense to anyone else. And they're usually missing a whole lot of parts as well. For example, things like melody lines, I tend to just work them out as I'm recording, especially for guitar parts. I find it's much faster doing it that way than writing out the whole line, and then I have to keep looking at the tab as I'm recording, and it's just slower doing it that way. So yeah, so I don't have tabs for all of my songs, but if there is a particular song that you want me to do a tab for, just drop me a message and I'll see what I can do. Dangster, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Dangster asks, are you currently working on a project? If so, what are you working on? And when's the Symphonic Metal tribute to Zelda coming out? I'm actually working on several things right now. I think I said this before, but I'm involved in a couple of different fan projects where I'm contributing background music to various things. And I'm also working on an instrumental at the moment. It's called a Magic Jewel, or Magic Duel if you're American, I guess. And yeah, that involves a lot of guitar work and also the recorder I was showing you before. So keep an eye out for that. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if I'll ever do the Zelda tribute. My original plan was to do a tribute to Ocarina of Time, and I was going to try and include all of the Ocarina tunes and a couple of other things. But when I sat down and tried to figure it out, it just didn't come together. Like, I couldn't get the tribute to flow properly, I couldn't get the bits to lead in, and it just didn't work out. So I've kind of put that, I've taken that off the pile at the moment. Yeah, it's back on the shelf. I'm not sure if I'll ever do it. So, sorry to all the Zelda fans out there. Maybe I'll get to it someday in the future, but yeah, not anytime soon. Nihilus Nix asks, were you surprised when Everfree Radio placed your Symphonic Metal tribute in their top 100 pony songs of 2012? To be honest, only a little bit. I already knew from YouTube's view counts that that tribute was pretty popular. But that being said, it's still an amazing honor to get into that list, just because of the sheer volume of excellent music that gets produced by the pony community. So I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who voted for me. And well folks, that's all the questions I have right now. Thank you all for listening and taking part, and I'll see you later.